All right, so what's up? My name is Grant. You might know me as GrantIV or GrantIV, depending on who you are. So I want to talk a little bit about Sin and Punishment. It's actually a game that seems to have been Japan's best kept secret until, we actually had access to games from overseas. This game was amazing for several reasons. The story was good. The graphics are amazing. For a Nintendo 64 game, it was peak. Granted, you're gonna see some blocky stuff, little edging, but I believe, if I'm not mistaken, feel free to correct me in the comments, I believe that this game was actually released at the end of its cycle, or the console cycle. So this was peak Nintendo 64 performance. Now, what exactly is Sin and Punishment? It's like a first glance, it's like a Star Fox or maybe Panzer Dragoon, but the developers was Treasure. So, of course, if you know Treasure, they were behind games like Gunstar Heroes, Radiant Silvergun, and other things. The thing about Sin and Punishment, it's a railgun shooter basically on steroids. You control Saki moving freely across the screen while the camera automatically progresses through apocalyptic environments. Things blow up, things die, whatever. One thing I found out about this game that it originally was called Glass Soldier. And of course, with it being a shoot 'em up, the character that you control, Saki, is actually very fragile. Seems to be more like a glass cannon. Of course, if you guys know fighting games, you know what this is. This is your Akumas, your Ibukis, all of that stuff. It seems like when it came to Treasure, Nintendo and Treasure apparently did not get along. Not necessarily didn't get along, like they were fighting in the middle of a schoolyard. More so the fact that Treasure wanted to do Sin and Punishment a certain way. Nintendo was not having it. The game technically was supposed to be harder than what we got on launch, or at least what Japan got on launch. Nintendo requested that they died it down. They also requested that the name of the game be changed from Glass Soldier to Sin and Punishment, and it just seems like there was a lot of discourse. Looks like the development team faced a lot of massive programming challenges. The Nintendo 64 complex 3D rendering capabilities were designed for games like Mario 64, Zelda, Ocarina of Time, of course, Majora's Mask, basically 3D explorable worlds. And Treasure was trying to adapt 2D gameplay concepts into 3D environments. So by late 2000, Nintendo 64 was on death row in the West. The PS2 had just launched in Japan in March and North America in October. The Dreamcast was trying to find traction, basically. Nintendo was already gearing up for the GameCube in 2001 launch. So the recent Nintendo 64 in the West had bombed commercially. Perfect Dark, despite being critically acclaimed, underperformed. Conker's Bad Fur Day, one of the most expensive Nintendo 64 games ever made, was a commercial disaster, and gamers had moved on. Nintendo looked at the market and made the business decision there was no viable market cycle niche rail shooter for a dying platform. Even though the game was already in English, the cost and risk didn't justify a Western release. So let's talk a little bit about the story. It's technically set in the near future Japan that's been overrun by mutant creatures called ruffians, but you're also caught between a resistance group and the armed volunteers. Of course, there's betrayal, transformations, and enough plot twists to fill a dozen anime episodes. And it's all delivered through fully voice-acted cutscenes. The weird thing is, it's all in English. Now, granted, a lot of people were campaigning for the fact that we kind of get a release of Sin and Punishment in America in English. And it turned out that Nintendo had it all along. October 2007, 7 years after the Japanese release, Sin and Punishment finally came to the West via the Wii Virtual Console. So for those who had been campaigning for years, it was a vindication for the broader gaming public. This incredible Nintendo 64 had been sitting in Nintendo's vault the entire time, fully playable in English, just waiting for the right moment. Reviews of the game was amazing. It looked amazing, quality was amazing, story was amazing, and nothing really hit quite like it on Nintendo 64. So one of the main things I kept seeing when I started to do research for this game was that the developer was very big on even-handed control schemes. It seemed like Mario 64 was very big on the right hand grip with the analog stick, and almost every developer followed suit. With Sin and Punishment, the left hand position with the D-pad was being ignored. So, with that being said, Treasure looked at this and thought, what if we made a game specifically designed for underutilized left-handed position? They wanted to create a fast-paced action experience that felt natural with the D-pad, something precise and responsive in ways the analog couldn't match for this type of gameplay.
Not through yet.
Oh, that's it. So, in conclusion, what did we learn from Sin and Punishment? Well, one, we found out that great games can get lost to bad timing. We found that it shows the power of passionate communities, because without importing gaming, keeping the flame alive, advocating for Western release, Sin and Punishment might have remained permanently obscure. We found out that it demonstrates the best games will eventually find their audience, whether it takes 7 years, a new platform, or digital distribution without removing previous barriers. But mostly we found out developers took risks. Not the get-rich-quick scheme, not the I know this will work for the community or for the money, but it was unique. It was something that told a great story. And I really do hope that one day we get back to that. If you guys would like to play Sin and Punishment, it is available on the Nintendo Switch Online. So, final thoughts. Game is amazing. You can't deny that. But regardless, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive into gaming history, feel free to hit the like button and subscribe for more content. And let me know how this went. This was my first video in forever. So let me know your opinion. Have you actually played Sin and Punishment? But with that being said, Lost Classics deserve this kind of presence. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Be happy, be healthy, and keep gaming.